Today is the 6th of March, 2005. We're here with the oldly weds, PD and Elma. Robert and I are sitting here at the other end of the table, and we're just trying to have a little walk with them down memory lane, and so
I departed.
what you was in the battle of what was the biggest battle you was in? This Okinawa.
Okinawa, definitely, yeah.
Why don't you just kind of describe what a battle day was like?
Okay. Well, I was in a number of battles. The first place we hit was Guadalcanal. They had kind of cleaned up there. And there I ran into Milton Taylor's ship pulled up alongside of us. And he sent a small craft over and picked me up, and I went and spent the day with him. But from there we loaded up in the big invasion of Leyte in the Philippines. And then I had another invasion in the Philippines. And then we had a couple smaller island invasions, Ulithi and Peleliu and that before we loaded up and went to Okinawa. So I was in a number of invasions. The Battle of Okinawa was our biggest one, and we loaded up, and I forget, we took a lot of anti-aircraft guns, I think, in Okinawa, but the big problem was we had extra space, and they loaded us up with 8-inch shells, which the heavy cruisers fired. And later on, I'll tell you, this became a great problem for us. We had all these 8-inch shells aboard it. But anyway, as we headed for Okinawa, we ran into rough weather and one thing another, but we had a big fleet and headed there. And of course, we had the landing craft, 24 landing craft, and we unloaded them. And there wasn't a lot of fire when they landed there, but at night, why, all the big battle wagons and that, you could see the shells go across the sky and hit the mountains over there where they were shelling and that. And we'd see suicide planes every day. Of course, I fired a 40mm gun on the aft part of the ship where I was a fire controlman. And so we got a lot of chances. We saw a lot of jet planes hit the ocean, and some of them hit the ships, and so there was a lot of fireworks. And then I remember one day I hear they open fire, and I recognized it immediately that it was one of our own planes, and he was wiggling his wings trying to tell him, hey, don't fire on me. But anyway, they never shot him down. But I remember when the firing would start one place, and immediately, if you can imagine, all the ships that was in there firing all at once at different planes. Why, he was in trouble, but as I remember why he was able to get away. But I do remember him open fire on one of our planes. But the Japs would come in the morning and at night, and that we was on guard duty most of the time. They'd have to bring us up sandwiches and like that. We did have some shrapnel. You could hear it hit the ship and bounce around the ship. Nobody was killed. We had a couple that was probably hit with the shrapnel, but that was about it. But a lot of our ships was able to leave. They unloaded their cargo and the men and were taken off. But as I mentioned, these 8-inch shells, we could not find anyone that wanted them. So at night, with all of our sister ships gone, we'd light smoke. We'd try and hide under the smoke. They'd have diesel furnaces kind of thing, and it would send out the smoke, and you'd try and cover the ship. And we'd done that till we run out of diesel fuel and had to quit doing that. But I saw a number of planes hit, and a lot of them knocked down. I fired at a lot of them. they asked me if I hit any. Well, when you got so many ships firing, you don't know what you do. But I imagine I was a pretty good shot. But anyway, we had a lot of excitement, very little sleep. But we finally was able to get rid of our 8-inch shells, and as we left, the only ships was the command ship and the smaller landing craft. So.
Well, and your sister ship, you told me about.
Yeah, our sister ship took, they had the hatch covers off. Over the holds they have heavy hatch covers. And of course you have to take those off to unload. And she had her hatch covers off, I think it was on the aft hold. Suicide plane come over and hit right down that hold. And as she went out to sea, when they bury somebody at sea, they get what they call a mattress bag. They're white and they fit a mattress. They would put the sailor in that, and they had a board they'd lay him on, and a few words were said, they raised the board up, and of course they gave him to the sea. And we watched that go on for a day or two, and they lost a lot of men with that. And
Didn't sink their ship though, huh?
didn't sink the ship, no. It opened it up just like a can opener, it opened it, but it was above the water line. So,
Now, anything else on Okinawa? Is that pretty well?
so we was able to get away from there and all the action and everything, and that was about it.
And now there's one battle there in the Philippines
Yeah,
where the Japanese fleet was coming down,
yeah.
and didn't they had destroyers and your protection was off somewhere else?
Yeah, when that happened, they said the Japanese Navy was coming. Get out of here as fast as you can without escort or anything. So they hauled up the anchor and we were gone. And that's something that never happened very often to travel without your escorts, because you always had destroyers ahead of a convoy and that. But we was all alone, kicked off as fast as we could go and get out of there, because there was quite a little battle there after we left. And